Hi, everyone, and welcome to Final Obsession, the podcast. We're at Grimey's Records in Nashville, Tennessee with actor and musician Charles Esten. Charles just finished picking out his top 5 albums, and we're going to take a deep dive into his picks on Final Obsession, the podcast. Hey, everybody, I am Eric Young, and this is Vinyl Obsession, and this is Charles Esten. Charles Esten is well known for playing country singer Deacon Claiborne on the hit show Nashville, and also had a starring role in the Netflix series Outer Banks. In addition to acting, Esten is a talented singer-songwriter who has made 170 appearances at the Grand Ole Opry. And we gave you an impossible task. I mean, admittedly, it's tough. I'm kind of listening by. I dropped in partway through your journey. Top 5 is tougher than you think.
It's so hard. There's pain to it, honestly, for me, but there's joy. It's kind of like going to the dentist. I mean, the pain of having to choose, but the sweet laughing gas of looking at all your old favorites really made it nice. It's a great journey always.
But you did get through the task of picking 5. We're going to go through the albums and talk about it. So many good things that you brought up upstairs, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. Let's go through. No particular order, just how they come out of the bag. Top 5.
All right, let's do it.
Vinyl number 1.
Oh yeah, this is the one. My mom had this in her collection, Tapestry. In a way, it's very much of that age, of that singer-songwriter movement where you had James Taylor and for me, I remember also at that time I'd be listening to Simon and Garfunkel, so Paul Simon and a lot of theirs. There's another one where I think my favorite album of that was a Greatest Hits. I'm trying to remember even which name it is, but it's when my father played. His yin to this yang was my dad was playing Simon and Garfunkel, and it had Bridge Over Troubled Water and I Am a Rock, I Am an Island. My parents had been divorced recently, and so for my dad it was I Am a Rock, I Am an Island. Rock feels no pain and an island never cries, kind of a thing. And my mom was doing this. She had a lot of John Denver and a lot of Eagles, and it had a more of a mellow vibe to it. It just like made our house very calm. From a house that had not been calm because of all the stress and the fighting before the divorce. Afterwards, it was an album like this that had a power within it, but a gentle beauty as well.
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late, though we really did try to make it.
I love her voice, I love her songs. I mean, clearly one of the great songwriters of all time. Even if this album had never come out, she would be in the pantheon of songwriters. So this is sweet, and it makes my mom feel real close to me. She's in Virginia right now, so
the connection of that is what makes it special too, right? Like you
Absolutely.
Can think about her taking that out and putting it on. I also was gifted the Carole King album from my mother as well. Yeah. And I remember the first thing I was like, "What is this?" There's a picture of this lady with her cat. I mean, I don't know how you decide that, but it is kind of perfect for the album.
Well, what's also interesting about that for me is I hadn't really thought about it till now, that how young my mother was at that moment when she bought that. I'm so much older than she was when she bought that album, and I was just a little kid. You don't picture people having their own hearts or minds or favorites. So I'm even trying to picture my mom, now that I think about it, in a record store picking up this album and buying it and bringing it home to her collection.
That's cool.
And it's very cool to me, that sort of going down that path and trying to analyze what put those records on her shelf. So now when I see her next time, I think we're going to go have an album discussion. I'm going to make her, I'm going to do this entire show with my mom, make her pick.
You should record it, the whole thing. Yeah, perfect. All right, number 2. Vinyl number 2.
This is Pet Sounds. The Brian Wilson brain and creativity, that the things he's hearing in the ether, the things he's hearing in the wind, the things a child's laugh makes him think of, we don't think of them. We can't mine the world for those things. But not only can he mine them, he can go into a studio and with blood, sweat, and tears and some of the most incredible voices in the world, this comes out of it. And it's available, and it's as immediate now as it was then.
For me, what I think of when I think of them is the harmonies, right? Something
Oh, yeah.
that isn't as prominent in music, but was a huge part of music at that point. But like, it wasn't just the instruments; it was their voices all together.
Sure, and it was taking what was it was doo-wop that had existed before them, and
Taking it to another level.
Yeah, exactly. But what the part you find out later is the incredible amount of discipline. It all sounds so freeform, but then you find out, no, he's in there going, no, not good enough, not good enough. Let's go again, and that's the part that I'm certain was hard on them and was hard on him spiritually, emotionally. But they did that in a way to get the perfection that exists throughout eternity. This thing, it's perfect. It will last too. Yeah,
it's perfect, and it's a good one to have in the top 5.
And Cedric the Entertainer says, on the album Abbey Road, there's a car. What is the license plate of that car?
Hey, you remember?
And I remember just going, I go, Cedric, I'm afraid I know this one. He was like, you do?
This is Vinyl Obsession, the podcast, and we're back with Nashville actor Charles Esten. Vinyl number 3.
Beatles, Abbey Road. It's so funny how so many albums, I chose these not for reasons of things that they had to do personally with my life, but just how they made me feel at that moment. Later you go on to go, oh, that's a connection that lasted. This is a huge connection for me. When I was on the show Nashville, I went up to New York to do publicity. And at the end of it, they had me be on a game show. I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And it was the celebrity version. And I kind of really didn't want to do it. Same reason I didn't want to do this. Like, I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to look uncool. But
not true.
But they said they were going to give $15,000 to my charity, which was the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which is a passion of my family's, that charity. So I said, well, I guess I got to go do it. So I go in there and I just keep getting questions that I know the answer to. And it goes on and on until I'm up at about $125,000 that I've raised. And at this point, I'm like, I'm not going to answer unless I know that I know that I know it. I'm not going to answer unless it's one I know the answer before they give me the options.
Yep.
And so I forget was at 125,000. I think it might have been the most popular female name in the world. And I went with Mary, and I think that was correct. So that got me to $250. That's $250,000 trying for $500,000.
Yep.
And again, I'm not going to answer unless I know that I know that I know. Cedric the Entertainer was the host. He was so kind. And I'm just out of my head. I'm exhausted from doing publicity. I just walked in the room, walked behind the microphone, and started answering questions, and they kept coming. And so I go, all right, there's no way I'm going to know this one. And Cedric the Entertainer says, on the album Abbey Road, there's a car. What is the license plate of that car?
Hey, and you remember?
And I remember just going, I go, Cedric, I'm afraid I know this one. He was like, you do? And they brought up the 4 answers, and one of them is on this white Volkswagen. You can see 28IF.
Yep.
Along with the fact that Paul is barefoot here, the only one who is barefoot. And in Sgt. Pepper's, they're holding a hand over his head. And and Turn Me On, Dead Man. There's all these clues that back in the day, there was a conspiracy theory that Paul had actually died and had been replaced with a fake Paul, or they called Fall. And because, there's 1,000 fake Paul McCartneys roaming around the world. All you had to do is grab. So it was always insanity. I always thought that was the dumbest thing. But I got fascinated by it. And one day I went down that rabbit hole, and there it is right on that license plate. And it says 28IF. That was because he would have been 28 if he had survived the car accident that he had been in. So all that crazy
But you
fables.
remember it clear as day.
I remember clear as day, and it was right there, and I just happened to be in that moment. So that's another reason that Abbey Road attaches dear to my heart, because I raised $500,000 for this charity.
What was the license plate of the car on the famous Abbey Road album cover?
Cedric, I'm afraid I know this one. I think I know this one. It's a lot of money to risk, but I have to say C. I have to say final answer.
Because you just got $500,000.
Her roommate took her all the way to the other side of the stage, and I didn't stop, lock, and gaze for a second. Walked all the way to the other side of the stage, sang the song, finished it. Used that as my entree. Like during a break, I just kept bumping into her, and finally she said, "Well, this is stupid. I'm Patty." And I said, "Yeah, I know who you are."
Welcome back to Vinyl Obsession, the podcast. Today, we have actor Charles Esten talking about his top 5 vinyl. Vinyl number 4.
All right, here we go. All right, Dire Straits, Making Movies. It's funny because I talk about movies and albums, right?
Yep.
I keep saying, and this one's called Making Movies. I don't know why he called that, but even in the beginning, it sounds like the carnival. It sounds like the movies. And it was just Mark Knopfler and his brilliance, his genius, his guitar, and his songwriting taking to this place. I love this one. When I was listening to this my freshman year, my sophomore year in college, it was just filling me, inspiring me, terrifying me about how good music could be, but just take me to this place. And once again, it was introduced to me by one of my great friends my freshman year, Tracy, who had such great musical taste, introduced me to more Bowie and to Squeeze. But this one is the one that we played again and again and again. So by the time I started a band, and by the time, in my sophomore year, by the time it was my junior year, halfway through, we had a pretty big repertoire. And I was on stage at an Amnesty International concert doing a show at one of the big halls at our college at William and Mary. And I look out about a quarter of the way through this set, and I see this gorgeous blonde girl who I'd seen since freshman year. She was the only girl on campus at the time that had a moped, a yellow moped. So I hear this ring, ding, 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 and
That's her.
And but she was always taken. She had a boyfriend, and she wasn't just taken. She looked taken. She didn't. Some girls are taken and didn't quite look. But you knew.
Yep.
That. All right. Respect.
Yep.
I'll stay away. But midway through my junior year, they broke up, and one of the first things she did was come to one of our shows, and I looked out, and she did not look taken. And we had some song, it was probably an R.E.M. or U2 or The Police or maybe an original, but I knew in that moment that wouldn't do. I have no idea what inspired me to say, no, we're gonna play something else. I stopped my band, turned around, and I said, I'm off the top of my head trying to think of the most romantic song I know. And the answer was pretty clear for our set list, was Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits. That's the second song on this album after Tunnel of Love. And the guy said, all right. And they started playing. And I started singing Romeo and Juliet right to her, about 15, 20 feet away. She was on the left side of the stage. She was stage left. Her roommate told her, she goes, he is completely singing this song to you. She said, no, he's not. And she said, yeah. So her roommate took her by the arm and led her all the way across, which I find to be brilliant. I'll show you.
It's a brilliant move.
Her roommate took her all the way to the other side of the stage, and I didn't stop, lock, and gaze for a second. Walked all the way to the other side of the stage, sang the song, finished it. Used that as my entree. Like during a break, I just kept bumping into her, and finally she said, well, this is stupid. I'm Patty. And I said, yeah, I know who you are. And we met, and quite literally, we've never been apart since then.
Juliet, when we made love, you used to cry. You said I love you like the stars above. I love you till I die.
We've been together for 37 years. She is now at virtually all my gigs. She sort of runs my musical empire. I couldn't do it without her. She was later, when she went to Hollywood to join me, she became Kevin Costner's assistant for 5 years. He could not have been more kind to us, and I was literally making movies. So yeah, this one wedges deep in my heart, and it's just so beautiful as well.
Yep. Thank you, Dire Straits.
Yeah, really. Thank you, Dire Straits. Another Dire Straits album. If it wasn't for the specificity of this version, I might have chosen Alchemy, which is their live album. Telegraph Road on that.
Yeah,
is just mind-blowing.
It's just an amazing story. Fate is something I believe in as well. I've got it tattooed on the inside of my right arm, and that's what it was. Right?
What is the tattoo?
Fate. It just says Fate.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
That's in that moment. Like, you guys are there at the same time.
Yeah.
You're single. She's single. You know this song off Dire Straits, which
even further,
you said earlier was one of her favorite bands.
It wasn't just one of her favorites. It was flat out her favorite song. I mean, that was bigger than my $500,000 Abbey Road moment. That was me just I played her Vinyl Obsession, and I chose her number one, and I nailed it. And on top of that, she'd only ever seen one concert before, and that was that major concert, that was Dire Straits. So that's incredible.
Incredible.
That was even to happen.
Another one that had to be in the top 5.
Oh, it absolutely has to be.
Good choice.
There's a part of me that wants to find cooler, deeper cuts, like so some guy that I don't even know out there will be like, good choice, dude. Nobody knows about that.
Welcome back to Vinyl Obsession, the podcast. We're taking a look at actor and musician Charles Esten's top vinyl picks. Vinyl number 5. All right, next one.
All right,
Last one.
The last one, yeah. This is certainly, for me, the most crucial, pivotal. Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. I'm just being honest here. There's a part of me that wants to find cooler, deeper cuts, like so some guy that I don't even know out there will be like, good choice, dude. Nobody knows about that.
We're all trying to secretly impress
Is
that
that
guy.
true? Well,
yeah,
we're all secretly trying to impress that guy.
I don't know if that guy exists.
I don't know.
It's an amazing
at a certain
list.
point you go, maybe that's why I'm the only one that chose a Beatles album, because I want just be you, Chip. Be you. And say what's true. And this is what's the truest of all the true. I remember this photograph on this album, right, like that.
Perfect.
I wanted that. I wanted to have a musical friend like that was a brother.
Yep.
And I ended up getting that in college with that band I talked about. I have guys who I've leaned on their shoulders like that 1,000 times on stage. So from the very first glimpse, this thing moved me. Honestly, I just think that it's an incredible cover as well.
It is. Yeah, it's
I
perfect.
think it's so clean. That font, that telly. The fact that that's that, and then you open it up like that, it's just brilliant. I love that all the players are all listed underneath each one. I haven't even got to the actual playing of it. And then that's a songwriter's dream right there back then.
Yep.
Just to see the words, and these words are poetry. Screen door slams, Mary's dress waves. I've opened 1,000 scripts since I've become an actor. And when you open a script, it'll say, exterior, day. Screen door slams, Mary's dress waves. It would literally say that in the script, so it's utterly visual and all the
That's
best.
how he writes songs, right?
Yeah.
Like you hear those words and you can't forget them, right?
Yeah,
It's a masterclass.
And then the instrumentation on all of them is just crazy. And I think I mentioned it up there, the piano, Roy Bittan, and of course the vocals and all of it.
Thank you so much for your time, man. At the end of this, I want to give you time to pitch some stuff. Tell everybody what you got going on. You're a busy dude. You got all these lines in different ponds, and I want to know what's going on.
Well, one of the reasons I was so looking forward to being on this show in particular is because it pays tribute to the album. And as I said, I just put out my own album, my debut album just dropped in January. And all of these, there's some of these albums somewhere in all of it. I've learned a little something sonically or a little something storyteller-wise. And the album's called Love Ain't Pretty. And it was fascinating for me being on the other side of the album, I'll say. The very first job I ever had, I was on Cheers. And I got to walk through that door. And that was incredible because for 11 years I'd watched the side of the bar that everybody else saw. And I got to step into Atlas through the looking glass and walk out that way. That's what this felt like, coming at the album from the other side, being the one that's going to engrave that onto the disc itself. Yeah. And all these lessons, I hope I learned some of them. It's called Love Ain't Pretty. There's songs definitely about my wife, the one I told you about. There's a song on there called One Good Move. And it says, how did I get here? It's all too good because I was a fool at that age. This is where I got my wisdom.
Yep.
The one good move was hanging on to her. The one good move was playing Romeo and Juliet.
Dire Straits.
So it's got a lot of songs like that. I hope it takes the journey. I hope it gets as quiet as Jungle Land does. I know it gets I tried to get as big as Born to Run does on certain places. I know it searches the depth of the human heart and how it can just break into pieces. And hopefully it finds the redemption and the grace and the glory of love. Yeah. And that's why it's so intimidating. But I feel so grateful and so blessed to have grown up on albums and to have finally got my one out. And yeah. I hope it becomes somebody else's story, some of these songs.
Spectacular. It's the time thing again. You've been a musician for decades.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're releasing your first album, and sometimes it takes time for it to be right.
Absolutely.
Sounds amazing, man.
Thanks, bud.
Guys, this has been Vinyl Obsession. I'm Eric Young. He's Charles Esten. He's obsessed. I'm obsessed. See you guys later.